So let me explain to you what just happened. That song was one of the main songs we learned at MFuge, our youth mission camp this summer. And it's one that everybody kind of really took a liking to. And here's what's funny. They all came up here to sing, which was amazing. And then as they were about to walk off, I said to them all, like 2 or 3 times, okay, so everybody wants to speak about their experience at MFuge. Y'all just stay up here. Y'all just stay up here, the ones who want to talk. And then so now they're all sitting down there. So I think I've got one brave soul who didn't even get to spend the whole week there because ended up leaving on Thursday and going to the hospital. But that microphone is on. So let me introduce to you Elizabeth, if you don't know her already. She was our group leader this trip, this summer. And, of course, had some things go on during the middle of the week and had to leave a little early. But, of course, she's fine now, thank goodness. And so she's going to share a little bit about her experience.
You can't see me back.
There you go.
All right. Well, this was our 3rd year going to camp, and our theme this year was Revival Generation, as you see on our shirts. This was our 2nd year at NGU, North Greenville University, and the first year we went to Bruton Parker University in Georgia, and our pastor for the week was Stephen Durbin, and some of you might know him from the movie Fireproof, and he was the guy who drank the hot sauce in that one scene. So I don't know if y'all know him, but that's who that was. We had 20 people total go, 6 chaperones, and 14 students, and 7 of them from the church that we came from, and 13 were from here. And some of you might know Kelly Williams from Christie's. She also went with us, so that was great. We had 5 people get saved that week, so that was awesome. And as he said, I left a little early, went to the ER in Prisma, and he drove the bus like a madman, which was hilarious. You did? Yes. The 3 groups we were in were children, social, and then PCY, which is painting, construction, and yard work. And so, as you can see right there, some of us went to a nursing home, and we played volleyball with a balloon and a net with some people there. And Sean and Savannah were in that group. And we also went to a thrift store and helped out there. And then our children's group, they went to apartment complexes, community centers, and played with the kids there. And our PCY group, obviously, they did some painting, construction, and yard work. Next year, our theme is Into the Light, and we will be going back to NGU sometime next year. I hope all of y'all can go again. And they don't know this, but there's a video that's about to pop up from the silent disco that I slipped in there. It should pop up any moment now. Yeah, so enjoy that, but yeah, thank you.
So just to explain, they did this activity called a silent disco, where they have a full gymnasium and they have headphones with different channels of music you can select. The only problem is you're there and you're dancing, but if you walk in and you don't have the headphones on, it's completely silent. So you walk in, all these people are dancing around to different music, but you can't hear what they're dancing to, so it's hilarious to watch. And so the video that's going to end our slides, here you go. So understand, there's no sound to it because it literally was silent. So the people dancing hear the music, but nobody else does. So it looks like you're completely crazy because you're dancing to nothing. So it's a pretty fun activity. Yeah, so it was a great week, and a lot of people got served by a lot of teenagers. And let me just give you this distinction, because there is an option each summer. There's 2 different types of camp that they offer. They offer what they call Centrifuge, and then what we went to, MFuge, and the M's for missions. And so Centrifuge is more of a camp that's focused on just strictly on your students. There's more dedicated individual Bible study time. It's kind of but there's also in the afternoon, it's just like games and recreation. Whereas the MFuge, which is what we did, 3 or 4 days during the week, all afternoon, you're sent to different areas to serve. And so we thought that would be a much more valuable experience for all of our students to learn to serve others and to think about other people's needs. It's all about missions and serving other people. So that's what they did all week long in the heat. We were there the first week of July, so it was hot. And I know the group I was in, we had 4 days. We spent 2 days working in the Greenville branch of the Harvest Hope Food Bank and packing bags and boxes and things of food for folks who need food. And then the other 2 days we spent at a nursing home. And here's what was interesting. I'll tell you this one personal testimony. So the 2 days we went to the nursing home, as soon as we walked in, I noticed there's a baby grand piano sitting in the little common area. And so I asked the person, there was a couple other of the teenagers who I know for a fact sing in the choir, are good, some from our church, some from another church. And I said, can I just sit? And I had my iPad, I had all this music. I said, can I just sit and play some hymns or some old song and we just see who wants to listen? And they said, oh, they'd love that. So we sat for 2.5 hours and just played and sang song after song. And you watched a lot of these senior adults who maybe don't get a lot of interaction every day, and they started gravitating towards the piano, and they just sat around. They just could hear them remembering all the songs, singing along. They didn't have any music, but they remembered all the words. And so for 2.5 hours, just sang and worshiped the Lord in the middle of the nursing home. So that was the first of the 2 days. The next day, we thought, well, good, we'll do that. We kind of have a plan. There was other activities, but we have a plan for what we're going to do, the 2 or 3 of us. And I went to that piano, and then the director of the nursing home came, hey, there's another piano in another wing. Do you think you guys could go over there today? Sure. Well, turns out it was the dementia care unit. And they have like a security door, because they can't afford to allow folks to get out, and then maybe they don't remember how to get back. And so it's a secure area. So we go over there, sit down at the piano, and this is the thing that I remembered that was just so amazing. We're sitting at the piano or standing around. I'm playing, they're standing around, we're singing. There was, I'll tell you a funny thing then a serious thing. One of the ladies sitting across the room, after about 20 minutes, sent a message to us by one of the other teenagers and said, I love the old hymns, but do you know anything by Brad Paisley or Keith Urban? Okay, fair enough. So she wanted to hear Blues Not Your Color. So, and I was looking on YouTube trying to find it, so we stumbled through that. That was funny. But then we played some other songs, and there was a lady who could not remember her family members' names, but she sang every verse of Amazing Grace from memory. As soon as she heard it, she started singing. And just those things, she couldn't remember the name of a family member, but she could remember Jesus. Isn't that crazy? It was a ministry to us, because I couldn't believe what I was hearing, because I thought, well, we're in the place where folks can't remember things, and she didn't miss a word. So that was a really neat experience for me, at least. So it was a great week, and a lot of ministry was done, and a lot of fun was had. And other than Elizabeth having to come home a little early, I don't think there were any other major injuries. or issues, so that was good. So that was our trip to MFuge. Now, the next group is a little bit smaller, and I only see one other person who went because the other one is back serving in children's church right now. So, Caitlin, don't you want to come up here and stand with me? You don't have to. Yeah, I know you do. Yeah, I know you do. You love me so much, you're going to sit right there. All right, so I guess I'll speak on behalf of the Miami group. Look, there you are on the screen. So if you don't talk, at least you're on the screen. So we have a partnership. Our association, the Edisto Baptist Association, has a partnership with a church in Sunrise, Florida, which is west of Fort Lauderdale, a little bit north of Miami. And so we go. It's called Gospel Life Church. We go down for a week with teenagers and adults from several churches in our association. Our basic schedule, we go on a Saturday, and it's 600 miles, so we drive all day on Saturday. Then we go to church with the host church on Sunday, and then we have a schedule that's basically split up like this. In the mornings, we go and work outside at the elementary school where the church meets on Sunday, and we do all kind of landscaping and things that don't get done by the school district, and we try to help beautify the school. We try to serve the school as a thank you to keep that good relationship between the church and the school so they can continue to meet there. And it's a big deal because in that area in South Florida, facilities are very hard to come by, and when you find something, it's very expensive. And so they're so fortunate. This is the cafeteria in the elementary school, which they allow us to eat our lunch in there. But it's a very difficult place to serve. In that area where this church is planted, there are probably, he told us, I want to say it's 300,000 or 400,000 people within a couple of counties, a couple of towns where they serve. And there's like 3 solid Bible teaching churches. Just 3 for that whole area, which is why South Florida had been identified by the North American Mission Board as one of the top 50 cities in America, in North America, that really, really need a gospel witness. So this church is doing a good work in an area that's not easy to serve in. And so this is the 3rd trip we've taken to this particular area in and around Miami. And it's allowed us a great opportunity to build relationships with the pastor and his family at the church, other families in that church, and also in the same geographical area for a few years in a row. So now there's a little bit more familiarity when we go and serve, and we're not just coming in fresh and don't know what we're doing and don't know where to go. And so now we recognize things, landmarks, and this was our final day. We always try to do a fun activity for the kids. So this year's fun activity was we're going to go into Everglades on an airboat and look at the alligators. So, so that was interesting. One, to be on an airboat and to be headed toward this head-high thing of grass, and you think we're about to wreck, and it just goes right over it. That's an interesting experience if you've never been on one. But to see the wildlife, they said in the Everglades where we were, there are alligators. There are also some crocodiles, believe it or not. Also bears and panthers and all kind of, and pythons. They showed us, this is the thing they showed us right before we got on the boat. One of the guides, because we took up 3 boats because it was a large group, showed us a picture on his phone of an 18-foot long python, bigger around than my leg, that they had just pulled out of there the week before. Well, and that's where we're going, so yay for us. But we saw several alligators and lots of interesting landscapes down there. The Everglades is really, really cool. It's all rainwater, I found out, that's flooded, that's caused all that. But it's really, really an interesting sight. We stayed at the facility that's owned by the Florida Baptist Convention. You know, we have the South Carolina Baptist Convention. They have one in each state. So they have a great facility down there that we stay at, and allows us a very cost-effective way to have that many people. We had a group of 30 and give us a place to stay. And then they have a worship space, a kitchen, a cafeteria place where we can cook our meals and then drive to where we're going to serve. So it's a really good trip. It happens every July from Saturday to Saturday. So any of you teenagers who didn't get to go this past year or the year before, if you're interested, go ahead and think about it now. It happened this summer. It happened the week right before you went back to school. It was like the 13th through the 20th of July, and it's a week-long trip. And it's very, very good, a very good experience for missions and to serve other folks. And I didn't get to see the guy at the park. So I told you the story about the guy in all black with the 2 Rottweilers that I tried to pray with 2 years in a row. I saw him at the same park. We didn't go to that same park this year, so I didn't get to see him. So I was a little bit upset about that because I was hoping to be able to find him again. But it's a nice place, beautiful landscape, but here's the piece of information that might be maybe challenging to our perspective. No shortage in a lot of areas of wealth, no shortage of nice homes, no shortage of nice cars, beautiful areas, and still hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people lost without Christ and going to hell. And it has no bearing. Just because people look like they're doing fine doesn't mean they know Jesus. And it's a great reminder for our perspective that you can see someone who looks like they're down and out. You can see someone who looks like they're riding high, and everywhere in between. But we have no idea where their heart is. Everybody needs Jesus. And so it was a tremendous opportunity. We got to go to the parks every evening. We would work in the morning and then go door to door handing out these little door hangers where you don't have to necessarily knock on the door, and because folks are funny about that down there. Well, they're funny about it everywhere, but just hang a little thing on the doorknob that has all the information about the church, and it's an invitation. And so we did that every day, covered hundreds and hundreds of homes, and then we'd also then go to the parks in the evening where everybody congregated and set up areas where we could pray for people, hand out free water, and do chalk art on the sidewalks, all kind of things, try to just serve people and try to open up doors to talk about Jesus. It was a really great experience. So I encourage any of our teenagers who might be interested in that next summer. It's a great opportunity. Okay, so we've talked about missions in the state. We've talked about missions in the United States. And now we're going to talk about missions in another country. So all of you who feel led to share, come right on up. There's a microphone right here. So what we're going to do is Rebecca's going to share first about one half of the trip and partnership, and then some of these guys are going to talk about another half of the trip, and hopefully you'll get a good picture of what all we were able to do. All right, there you go.
Thank you. So before I get started, I want to tell a brief story. So one of my now sisters in Christ, Mary Estella, who is one of the leaders of the Viver Project, they call her Butters, or Butter, because if you take butter out of the fridge, it melts. So I'm going to try to get through talking about the project without melting or turning into butter. So when we started talking about going to Brazil, I felt called to go, but then I started coming up with all these excuses, of why, not to go. But I'm so thankful that I went. Some of my excuses were, hey, I'm fluffy, I don't speak Portuguese, I don't know what I'm going to say or how I'm going to relate to these people so far away. But right before we went on the trip, I kept getting called to go, and I said I was going to go. And so right before the trip, when we were doing adult vacation Bible school, I was talking about Moses, and I felt called to talk about Moses. But in Exodus 4, verse 12, the Lord tells Moses, "Now therefore go, and I will be thy mouth, and I will teach thee what thou shalt say." And I was so glad that I didn't listen to any of the excuses that I was trying to make up, because I would have missed out on a real blessing and a life-changing experience and trip for me. So Joshua, they don't call people by nicknames, so JT was hard. So Joshua, I'm Rebecca in Brazil, and my friend Carla, who is not with us today, but she actually was a member of the mission team that went with us, and she lived in Brazil for 7 years and actually spoke very fluent Portuguese, so I didn't need to know the language. And so we got to spend our time in Brazil with the Viver Project, which, like the pastor mentioned, is a difficult area. It's in a difficult area. So there's a lot of drug trade. There's a lot of gangs, and very, very humble households. And so the family that we got to work with, Jill May Sr., Jill May Jr., Mary Estella, Pastor Daniel, Joycey, in the Viver Project. I'll let the guys talk about the other project. But they live in this community and they serve these children. And we also got the pleasure to meet over 100 children that are part of the project. And so some of these pictures are of us giving out shoes, basic needs, packages, and other things, but also getting to know, getting to share with them the love of the Lord. And we actually got to visit some of their families' homes and pray with them in their homes. And one thing I will say, and this, when we first got there, our first day in the project, we were in the home with Mary Estella and Jill May Jr., and we were sharing our testimonies, and we were talking about the Lord, and all of a sudden, we hear these little voices, and they are outside of the window, a lot of children of the project, just saying every English word that they knew and that they could remember, and they could not believe that someone from the United States, somebody from South Carolina, would go all this way to visit, and that these Americans would care about them, that they would love them. And it brought a tear to my eye, because God loves us no matter how far away we are, but we got to share some of God's love from 5,500 miles away. And so the children, they were so beautiful, and we got to spend such meaningful time with them. Joshua got to learn some jiu-jitsu, so maybe he'll share about his moves. And the children got to sing, and they sang songs that talked about hardship, talked about struggle, talked about the lack of safety, but also just the love for the Lord and the faith that they have in the Lord, and that the Lord will continue to provide and protect them. And so often we forget about the power of ministry for children. And these children were able to go and share with their community, with their families. When we went and prayed in these very, very humble lodgings, the families, we would say, what would you like us to pray about and pray for? And they would say, don't pray for us. Pray for this project, that it'll continue to grow, and that it'll continue to reach other children, that it'll reach other families. And so these children have the impact and the ability to impact and change their community, to change the lives of their families, their parents, and the future of their community when they get older. And so that is our hope. And all of these children get Bible study, they get jiu-jitsu classes, they do school support, they do after-school programs, and so many other things. So it was such a pleasure to go, and I can't wait to go again. I said when I left that I left a piece of my heart there, and I truly mean that. I also really want to say that the family that we got to spend time with, Jill May Jr., Jill May Sr., and Mary Estella, we were talking this morning in Sunday school about faithfulness and obedience and having a love for the Lord and doing what you're supposed to do and following the direction of the Lord and not asking a ton of questions, right? So this family, they moved into this area because they believe in the mission and they were called to reach this community regardless of concerns of safety, regardless of any of these things. And so they are just such a special family, and I pray for them every day. We talk on WhatsApp. It's a whole nother world for me to use that app, but I continue to pray for them every day, and now I have brothers and sisters in Christ that pray for me 5,500 miles away. So it was the biggest blessing of my life, and it's changed me as a person. So again, our mission on our bulletin every Sunday, we say love God, love people, and make disciples. And through this project, we're able to make disciples and love people and show our love for the Lord, but also to make disciples in this area and continue to support discipleship all the way in Brazil for such a community who is so much in need of that. So it was such a blessing. I will turn it over to Joshua.
All right, good morning. I'm going to echo pretty much some of the same things that Rebecca did. And it's very structured and scripted, so I'm just going to read from the script, and we'll go from there. But just like Rebecca said, this trip was, it feels like it was a blessing for us way more. They blessed us so much more than we were able to bless them. The trip was a great experience. I intend to go back. Before I talk more about my experience, I do want to thank everyone in the church and the community that prayed before, during, and after the trip for us and for the people in Brazil, and who also gave, and those who helped organize the trip in any way. I do want to thank the community in which we served. They treated us with unmatched hospitality. And most importantly, I want to thank the Lord. I mean, He sustained us. He always sustains us. We are fully dependent on Him, fully reliant on Him. And that's apparent in our everyday life, but very much so when you're 5,000 miles away from home. So the travel experience, I'll first start talking about the flight itself. The flights and the layovers really weren't too bad. I think Pastor Mike planned out everything. They, for the most part, went very smoothly. The 9-hour flight, that was probably the one that was, the most difficult. You're sitting on a plane for 9 hours, which is tough. But other than that, everything went very smoothly with that part of the trip. I don't know about everybody else, but on the way up there, I struggled with sleeping. I didn't sleep until we got into our hotel room that night. So I'm guessing that's over 24 hours. I haven't done the math. Drew did not have a problem sleeping. He was telling me that he takes medication for sleep. And so if any of y'all are struggling with sleeping, you need to get with Drew, and he can hook you up with some good stuff. He slept all the way there and all the way back. So if you're having trouble, talk with him after church. So the Viver Project is where me and Rebecca and Carla, who's not with us today, this is where we served and spent the majority of our time. And so we stayed, our hotel was kind of more in the touristy area of town, and then we would go about 25 to 30 minutes from our hotel to get to the Viver Project. And the community in which the Viver Project is, it's, a town or a community in poverty, and the area is run by the drug cartel. They decide who gets in, who gets out. They make the rules. You follow those rules, and you're okay for the most part. But many of the families, of course, are struggling with poverty, but drugs and violence are a big part of that community. Most of the families living in that area, they are struggling to obtain the basics, things that we take for granted daily. While we were there, we were able to participate in the community and go to many different houses. We were also able to participate with the kids. And the biggest thing we did was we just was there and kind of just fellowship with them. And they showed us so much love, respect, and grace, bearing with us, with the language barrier and all. But what Pastor Jill May Jr. and Mary Estella are doing with the Viver Project is just so admirable. They once lived not too far away from where we were at the hotel, but they have since left that home and they have set up shop in the community where the Viver Project is. So they've pretty much left everything in their family to be in that community. While we were there, we did get to participate with the kids as far as handing out shoes or flip-flops to those children who attended the Viver Project. On a normal basis, Pastor Jill May and his family, their whole goal is to, number one, share the gospel, but it's to get the kids off of the street and into a positive environment. And so they do a great job of doing that by setting up a children's choir. They have, like Rebecca mentioned, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo classes, which they let me participate in. I have no moves whatsoever. Those kids, if they wanted to, they could have broke me in half. Yeah. Little, yes.
While he was practicing with the teenagers, it was the little kids.
Yeah, and that's all I wanted. I didn't want to go up a level. I was good where I was at with the 8-year-olds. Most importantly, Pastor Jill May Jr. and Mary Estella, they're teaching the Bible as well. That's a part of the project, the main part of the project. And in closing, I'll talk about the people a little bit. There were so many people there. Like I said earlier, they showed us so much love, respect, and grace. The kids at the Viver Project, they were amazing. They were so kind, very smart, very grateful. Everything that we did with them, and we did nothing out of the ordinary. We were just there. They were so grateful to have us just there and just to speak English with us, or us attempting to speak Portuguese with them. It was a blessing just to be there with them, and they're one of the reasons why it's so hard to leave. All the people in the Brazil community was very kind. Like I said earlier, they have unmatched hospitality. We worked and served with many different pastors and many different families within different churches. They fed us well. Everything was very good. There was one thing that me and Rebecca, we enjoyed everything, but there was one thing that we probably won't try again. But everything was very good, and I just want to list those individuals out who just showed us so much love and support and ministered to us while we were there. Of course, Pastor Jill May Jr., Mary Estella, Pastor Daniel and his family, the kids of Viver, the families of Viver, Pastor Leandro and his family, and then once again the many church families that served us food and served us very well. In conclusion, honestly, what I did on the trip was nothing special or anything that no one else in this church could do. And to be honest with you, and it's not a knock against anybody up here, but it's pretty much the same thing for all of us except Pastor Mike and Carla. Anybody could go and do what we did. Pastor Mike, he preached his tail off, every day. So not everybody can do that. And Carla, for 24/7, she was translating Portuguese to English or English to Portuguese. So definitely couldn't have gone without her. Just reflecting on all this and the experience, it made me think about some of the questions that, maybe some people might have, right? A common question, and it's not necessarily a bad question, but why go to Brazil when there's lost people here in our families, our communities, our state, and our nation? Well, Pastor Mike has already mentioned and had a sermon on the Great Commission not too long ago, right? That's why we go. We're commanded to do that. But those people who think that, they're exactly right. We do have those people in our families, communities, state, and nation that are lost as well. So my encouragement would be to go, right? To go in your families, your communities, your church families, your state, and this nation, and serve. But the key is we got to bring the gospel with us when we serve. If you're going with Pastor Mike, that'll be easy because he's going to bring the gospel. But we all have to be prepared to do that. We all have to be prepared, and the blessing is that we have a book right there in front of us that maps all that out. So that's all I got.
All right, so the two of them were very structured. Got a message this morning, what are we doing? And I said, I'm not 100% sure, we're just going to wing it. So while they had everything together, we're going to wing it. In Brazil, they'd call it gambiarra, or doing something just by the seat of your pants.
Yeah. Kind of like the majority of our first week there was, what are we doing? No, we're
just
going.
Fixing stuff.
We're going. That was the big pieces.
So the four of us were part of the project to actually build the church there in Brazil. So, the four of us. Damien never talks, just like here. So it was the three amigos, or Mike refers to as the Three Stooges, because it's kind of nonstop comedy hour when you're with us. But at the same time, while we're building the church, so many people would come in. We'd be singing songs. When we first got there, they were playing songs in English. It's like, hey, we want to hear the Portuguese songs. So they flipped it over, and most of them when you hear the tune and the rhythm, and you know what the song is. We'd sing in English, they'd sing in Portuguese. I know for me, one of the best parts was the guy who was over the construction there, the general contractor, Samuel, and his family were a huge part of that and wouldn't have been able to accomplish what we did. We spent 14 hours about every day for the first 4 days, about like here, 100 degrees, high humidity, nonstop working, drywall, hanging styrofoam on the walls, painting, carpentry, hanging lights, doing electrical work, woodwork for walls, trying to get electrocuted several times because they don't believe in turning off power.
I'll talk about that because it was me. So a lot of us here, we work in an environment, a manufacturing environment, some industrial environment. We have this thing called OSHA. They don't. And so part of the construction was comical because we kept looking going, we would never do that back home. So I'll give you a few of those stories. So one of them, and I wish I would have sent the pictures because it speaks for itself. They do a different kind of drop ceiling. It was a drop ceiling with drywall. And I don't know if any of y'all have ever seen that. It was very unique. And so there was one portion where we had to get into the corner of the ceiling and the wall over a staircase. And we didn't have scaffolding. So what we ended up doing was taking a ladder in one direction to hold another ladder in this direction. And then 7 of us held the ladders while one guy climbed to the top. And we're sitting back going, man, the safety guy at work would love this picture. So we took it and we sent it in to the people we know that are in safety. Then in OSHA, there's electrical safety called lockout, tagout, which they also don't believe in. The way they determine if the power's on is they stick their finger in it. And so Chris is up there. He's working on installing some light fixtures. And he's like, how can you not see anything? Click. And he's like, what are you doing? As he's holding the two electrical wires, but he didn't get electrocuted. So then we figured, okay, it's not that bad. Well, then we went to the Viver Project for the last few days, and there was a lot of electrical work to do there. And we all see things differently, but they ran a wire under the wall, and instead of behind the wall, they ran it up the wall and then made their makeshift electrical box. We said, oh, we'll move that, no big deal. But it's the main power coming from the street. So we're like, oh, you're not going to shut this off. So I assume I'm loud enough. So you're not going to shut this off. So we're not professionals at this either. So we're going through, and Chris and I are feeding the electrical wire, and I was like, yeah, it's good. I'll just pull it from here. And our version of insulated gloves was taking electrical tape and wrapping it around our fingers because we knew it's always hot. So as we're pulling through, Mike standing outside, and there were several people standing outside, and I'm outside pulling a wire. And the next thing you know, Mike sees me leap a good 6 feet in the air, and he looks over and he's like, what was that? I was like, man, my heart.
It wasn't just the leap. He screamed like a little girl.
Yeah, okay. That happened too. And
the lights did go out. I'm just saying.
It was a shocking experience, to say the least. And at this point, Jill May goes, oh, you want me to shut the power off? Click. There's a switch on the street just to turn the whole building off. And we were like, oh, we've been doing this for 2 hours, and now you're going to do that. Appreciate it. So it was definitely it was a great experience. And I would say a couple things. I probably talked to these two guys maybe 10 words, and one of them sits right behind me, one of them sits right in front of me. But now I've got an unbelievable relationship. We're in a group text where we do like to joke a lot. And it was quite humorous the whole time we were down there. And if we can convince him here in a minute, one of the things we did when we were down there was Lewis loves to sing. And they learned that. And I'll tell you something about praise and worship. We think we do praise and worship here. It is an unbelievable experience to watch. They have a 16-year-old young girl. She runs the entire youth. She runs the worship, the praise and worship. She sings. She gets them excited. And I'm looking at these guys like, man, and youth, I don't know what it is, but they were in love with God. They wanted everybody to know that they were going to sing, and they did it whether there was instruments or not. Right there. So that young girl is 16 years old, Kayla, and she sung her heart out, wanted to play an instrument. All she wanted us to do was sing with her. And there was a running joke, and I don't know how pastors do this, but every time somehow in their sermon, the running joke of the day got into their sermon. And one of them was Lewis. We convinced all of them that Lewis was a musician and he was a singer, and he was going to sing Amazing Grace. And the whole time they would just yell, Louis, Amazing Grace, Louis. And so then I think he's probably going to do it here in a minute. But and this is how every day was, because it would be, hey, Lewis, they're ready. They need Amazing Grace. So in the middle, Leandro, in the middle of the sermon, he's like, Louis, Amazing Grace. And so in the middle of his sermon, it's just like they adapted it in. But we ended up getting on stage, and we convinced Lewis to sing Amazing Grace with us. And when we opened our mouths to sing, you would have thought we were rock stars. The church erupted, and then it turned into everybody jumping and screaming. It was really amazing. So this is the second mission trip I got to do. And if you ever see me wear these white shoes, I know they look really ragged, but they're from 2015. We went to the Virgin Islands. And now you see us up here, and somebody asked this morning, hey, is there a soccer game? I said, well, this is Brazilian attire. This is it. So we left looking American and came back looking as Brazilian as you can, I guess. And so you guys will see us wear these. Mike has one as well.
He won't wear it. It's sitting on the chair. He's a gringo.
Yeah, real Brazilios over here. Yes. And I want Damon's going to say one thing, because he didn't want to talk when he was up here, but we made him come up. So when we first got there, we met a guy named Ozul. And he only learned one of our names, and it was mine. And this is how, every time he saw us, this is what he would say. That was it. That's how he knew us. Because I rode in this car with him, and it's the only name he could pick. So now every time you hear Damon yell that, he's talking to me when I walk by. So, and I know everybody's going to want to eat, and Pastor's still got to preach, so I'm going to let these two talk, because I can be up here all day. There was so much we did. It was exciting.
Yeah, so it was a lot of work. One thing I will say is because we split into two different groups, so Rebecca, Carla, and JT, Joshua, they went mainly to Viver for the first 4.5 days. We focused on building a church. So at Viver, all of the children, the families, they have nothing. They live in shacks with no necessities, soap. Those are the things when they said they were giving them necessities, they were talking about soap, deodorant, shoes. A lot of these kids is probably the first pair of actual shoes they've ever had. While we worked at a church where people did have things. So sometimes, just like Mike was talking about, you have to learn that balance. Just because they look like they have things doesn't mean the community has Jesus. And that's our goal. So as part of that, Mike spoke a lot of places. So he got the agenda 4 days before we left, I think. And every day he had to preach or teach at least twice. I think there were 2 days where you didn't have anything. So, and this is 4 days. Normally he's preparing a sermon a week in advance or more. And now he's got 4 days prepared, 9, 10 different preachings because it was to some of the same people. You're not going to share the same thing. So a big part of what we did was to build this church to try and grow their community, grow their leadership so that they could start taking part more with the children. So just as we here appreciate all of you allowing us to go to share the word of Jesus, we're going to teach them as well. Hey, you need to be sharing the word of Jesus in your own community as well. So hopefully by what we've done, because they would not go. You'd talk to Jilme and their people at Viver. Their own family members, brothers, sisters, actual family would not come visit them where they live because of the way the community is. So one of the things they pointed out a lot was that the Americans were going up the hill, which is where everybody in the bad part lives. So we need to remember that no matter what kind of situation we're in, we're called to share. Regardless of what that is. So hopefully by us going and building that church, God would bless those people, bless the children. I do know they're actually looking at starting their own Viver project at the church we helped build so that they could worship to the children there in the community closer to them. So they partner with Cariacica right now, and they're going to try and create a whole nother place as well. So something coming up, we have around Christmas, our Sunday school class is going to be trying to donate, hopefully enough to get every family there a food pack. And their food pack is flour, cornmeal, oil, and that's the kind of stuff they're wanting. It's not they're wanting a turkey or something big like that. They just want something that they can make bread. And that means a lot to the children there. I know as we went there and finished up some of the projects, we have more continued stuff to do. As we partner with Samuel, which was the general contractor there, he's already in communication with us quite often. He wants to be part of our missions team. So while we are the missions team from Berlin, now we have somebody from Brazil, and he's not talking about just for that church or just for Viver. He said anything we do, let him know, and he's going to be there to be part of it. That's part of what we're doing. So everything that you guys have done is part of that. And by sharing what we have here, we've incorporated somebody there, and hopefully that kind of thing will continue.
Amazing Grace.
Amazing Grace. Luis. Let's get the lights. Yeah.
So I just want to close today. If you'll go ahead and scroll through the end of those pictures. You don't have to skip. You can scroll on down. That's fine. Or you can do that. So this was the screen at the end of the sermon last Sunday. That was the last statement we read together last week. And so, two things. Just as we see that, the number one priority for our church is to make disciples. That includes missions and evangelism, going and sharing and praying. And so that's one thing we absolutely have to do. But I wanted to just follow up on one last thing that I don't know if everybody took note of what Chris said. In the town where the Viver Project is, up the hill, Ochre Hill is what it's called, Ochre Hill, controlled by a drug cartel. And in the middle of that is this ministry. And there's a church at the bottom of the hill. Pastor Daniel is the pastor of the church. Pastor Gilme is, and his family, the pastor at the Viver Project. People in this church won't go 5 minutes up that hill for whatever reason. And it took people 5,000 miles away to go up the hill to try to help share Jesus. So, what does that look like here? Who are the people that are 5 minutes away that we're not willing to go to? And we need to go to neighborhoods and nations. In other words, we don't want to trip over our neighbors so we can go 5,000 miles away. But we also don't want to so concentrate on, well, I'll just do this right here, that we neglect people in faraway places that need Jesus. Because it's not either or. It's both. Jesus said, you'll be my witnesses in Jerusalem and all Judea and Samaria and to the ends of the earth, the most remote parts of the earth. And Brazil, some of Brazil seems like the most remote part of the earth. And it's one thing to sing a song here about God's going to protect me and He's going to provide. It's another thing when a 6-year-old living in drug-infested gangland sings that song. And they are 100%, they are relying on Jesus. It's not just a song. It's their life's at stake. And so it is an incredible ministry. I hope that when we go over here to eat right now, that I hope you'll be able to speak with some of the folks who have gone on some of these trips, and especially, though, in Brazil, just because it's such a different experience. Because the main reason I didn't want to talk about Brazil is because I wanted you to hear from them. Because a lot of people think, well, the pastor's got to tell you you're supposed to go here or there. It'd be a good idea. But when you hear other folks who have been, I guarantee you they can't possibly put into words what is in their heart and mind. They can't possibly. You have to experience yourself. They will never be able to fully communicate what went on while they were there. So pray about it. Think about it. Because it's what we're called to do.